The largest union talk radio program in the South. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is Adam Keller, but he is not in again today. Again, that's 2 weeks that Adam is absent. We might have to write him up for that. But no, it's an excused absence. He told us that he was not going to be here. He is in Tuscaloosa. He is in Tuscaloosa doing a union fight back summit or some such, gathering with union leaders and activists from across the state to talk about the state of Alabama's labor movement and where we go from here. If you'd like to talk to us about the state of Alabama's labor movement or anything else, you can give us a call. That phone number is 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. The phones are open now. Also, here's a quick notice for folks here in Huntsville. NALC Branch 462, that is the National Association of Letter Carriers local union here in Huntsville. They're going to be hosting a talent show tonight at the Black Umbrella. Tonight, Saturday, November 1st, at the Black Umbrella. The address is 2400 Hall Avenue, Huntsville, Alabama, 35805. Yeah, I think that's it. On November 1st, that's today, Saturday, from 7 to 10 p.m. There are going to be singers, dancers, comedians, and rappers. Food will be served. Bar service will be an option, or you can bring your own beer. For ticket information, you can contact Yamina Foster at 205-587-8653. All proceeds will be going to the Muscular Dystrophy Association. That's right, you can have an evening of fun at the Black Umbrella, all to benefit the Muscular Dystrophy Association, hosted by your letter carriers right here in Huntsville. So check it out. If you're in the area and you've got some time, go ahead and do that. Here's another super local story, but it's only super local in that that it just happened here. But this kind of stuff happens all over the place all the time. The city of Athens has voted to give something like $600,000 to Olive Garden to have the privilege of having an Olive Garden in Athens. And look, I mean, some people are really real, like what's the word? Uppity about Olive Garden and those types of restaurants. Olive Garden, Longhorns. I freaking love Olive Garden and Longhorns. Probably more than is, like, respectable. I like Longhorns is one of my favorite restaurants, right? But why would you be giving over $500,000 to Olive Garden? It's a money-making venture for them. If you are going to be giving out a bunch of money to a company, to a restaurant, there are local restaurants in Athens, or there are people in Athens that presumably would love to open a restaurant and would love to be just handed $600,000 to be able to open a restaurant. But here's the and this is not like me spinning it. This is the Athens government website. This is just straight from them. The Athens City Council voted on Monday, October 27th, to approve an economic development project. Economic development project. Is getting a restaurant really a super big chain restaurant really an economic development project? The Athens City Council voted on Monday to approve an economic development project related to Olive Garden Holdings, LLC, which intends to develop an Olive Garden restaurant in Athens. The restaurant location will be Athens Limestone Boulevard near US 72 and Interstate 65. The project will be a $6.5 million investment and expects to create 80 new jobs. And now this is another thing. 80 jobs at Olive Garden? those are not good jobs, right? I mean, if you're going to be touting this as a job creator, let's actually talk about the jobs. Let's talk about how the servers are only paid $2 an hour from Olive Garden. Let's talk about how the back of the house crew probably, I would not be shocked if they only make $11 or $12 an hour. Maybe they make more at Olive Garden. I don't know. Probably don't make that much money. Probably don't have health care. Probably don't have a 401k. Just come on. It will generate annual taxable sales of approximately $4.5 million. As our city continues to grow, we also have to grow our sales tax base in order to fund services such as first response, blah, 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 blah. Sales tax makes up more than 40% of our budget, so retail investment from national chains like Olive Garden and mom-and-pop shops and restaurants on the square are vital to our local economy. The Athens City Council approved an incentive based on sales tax generated by the restaurant. The city will annually pay the company in arrears 100% of the proceeds from the city's sales tax actually received by the city, minus certain costs for a period of 6 years or until $600,000 is paid, whichever comes first. This is contingent on Olive Garden opening and continuing operation by certain dates. And so that's the full post on Athens website. I would be interested in folks, I would really be interested in folks calling in and letting me know what you, particularly if you live in Athens. If you live in Athens and you're hearing me right now, what do you think about your city council deciding to spend $600,000 to bring in Olive Garden? Do you think that money could have been put to better use? Seems like it could have. The phone number is 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. One more time, 844-899-8857. 8857. Let me know if you're in Athens how you feel about this. Seems like that's not the best use of tax dollars to me. And especially, 80 new jobs. These are not good jobs. I've worked in a restaurant before. These are terrible jobs. We should be doing something different. And if we're going to have terrible restaurant jobs, let's at least make it local. Let's at least make it interesting. That would be how I would approach that. But, I don't know. I'm not on the city council, so I guess they can kind of do whatever they want. Just does not seem like a good use of time. Obviously, we are still in the middle of a shutdown right now. And something that has been a little bit surprising to me is, I don't know, not super surprising, but we've definitely seen a lot more pushback on the Democrats from unions in the last week in particular than we had been, and then we would, typically, unions are going to more or less kind of fall in line behind the Democratic Party when it comes to politics, and there's a lot of misinformation about unions and Democrats and things like that, but we won't get into that. But it's shocking how many unions have come out in opposition to basically in opposition to the Democrats here. AFGE, the largest federal employee union, American Federation of Government Employees, the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers, IFPTE, the National Air Traffic Controllers Association, NATCA, several pilots unions, which together represent some 100,000 pilots, and of course the Teamsters, Sean O'Brien. They're going to back whatever the Republicans say is good. But all of these unions and a couple of others are calling for the passage of a clean CR. And, from AFGE's press release, they talk about how the let's see. Yeah. So here's from their website, AFGE. Again, the largest federal employee union. They represent some 800,000 federal workers, including several thousand right here in Huntsville. This week, Congress pushed our nation into the fourth week of a full government shutdown, an avoidable crisis that is harming families, communities, and the very institutions that hold our country together. Both political parties have made their point, and still there is no clear end in sight. Today, I'm making mine. It's time to pass a clean, continuing resolution and end this shutdown today. No half measures and no gamesmanship. Put every single federal worker back on the job with full back pay today. As president of the American Federation of Government Employees, I represent over 800,000 federal and D.C. government workers who serve with pride and professionalism. They ensure our skies are safe, our veterans receive care, our borders are protected, and our food is inspected. They come from every political background and every corner of this nation. What unites them is a simple belief that service to country is honorable work. Today, that belief is being tested. The Army nurse in San Antonio, the TSA officer in Atlanta, the USDA food safety inspector in Iowa, and hundreds of thousands more like them are being asked to keep our country running without the paychecks that keep their households afloat. These are patriotic Americans, parents, caregivers, and veterans forced to work without pay while struggling to cover rent, groceries, gas, and medicine because of political disagreements in Washington. That is unacceptable. Unfortunately, shutdowns have become a recurring tactic in Washington, but there is no winning a government shutdown. They cost taxpayers billions, they hurt small businesses, and erode confidence in government itself. And the American people know this. That's why 9 out of 10 Americans think this government shutdown is a problem. It's time for our leaders to start focusing on how to solve problems for the American people rather than on who is going to get the blame for a shutdown that Americans dislike. Because when the folks who serve this country are standing in line for food banks after missing a second paycheck because of this shutdown, they aren't looking for partisan spin. They're looking for the wages that they earned. The fact that they're being cheated out of it is a national disgrace. It's long past time for our leaders to put aside partisan politics and embrace responsible government. A strong America requires a functioning government, one that pays its bills, honors its commitments, and treats its workforce with respect by paying them on time. And so, again, calling for a clean CR there. And I really do understand why he would be calling for that. And maybe it's even the right thing for Democrats to do at this point. Maybe not. But it is very frustrating, and it's not just, AFGE or some of the other unions that are kind of painting this picture. But when people talk about, should Democrats open the government, or should Democrats do this or that or the third thing, we are not talking about the actual issue in dispute. The actual issue in dispute is whether or not we are going to allow healthcare costs to skyrocket for millions of people across the country. The Democratic position at this point is no, we shouldn't. And the Republican position is, yes, we're willing to do a government shutdown so that we can increase healthcare costs for millions of people. And I think that it's really important for people to remember that that is what's going to happen. Hundreds of thousands of Alabamians, millions of Americans are going to be made to pay, double, triple, quadruple what they were paying before in healthcare costs. Many of them are not going to have healthcare anymore. They're going to drop their insurance. Then, when they do get injured, the hospital is going to have to give them uncompensated care, which they are going to then pass on to the rest of us by increasing prices for our insurance, and everybody's insurance is going to increase. There's going to be less economic activity. There's going to be less kind of preventative treatment and stuff. It's going to be bad all around. Really, really bad all around. So yeah, I don't know. I'm really concerned about what's going on here. But we'll continue to talk about it. 844-899-TVLR is the phone number, 844-899-8857, if you would like to share your thoughts on how the shutdown is proceeding. But now we have David Clark in the Zoom. Really excited for this conversation. David and I have been in a lot closer communication over the last several months than we have before. David is a member of the United Steelworkers and the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, USW and IBEW, and he is currently the Director of Labor Relations at the United Way of Central Alabama. David Clark, welcome to the Valley Labor Report. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you, Jacob. Glad to be here.
Really excited to have this conversation with you. David, I wanted to talk to you before we talked about your work in the United Way, and I know you want to talk about the building trades apprenticeship programs, which you and I have been doing some work to try to help support over the last few months. Before we talk about that, could you talk to us about your time in the labor movement? What do you feel like you learned that over your career in the labor movement that is really important for younger folks or folks just coming into their unions to know?
Well, one of the most important things, it was right off the bat, learn your local issues, learn your contract. I was always amazed at the number of people that would come in and not realize that something did not apply to them. And I'll give you a really good example. One of those things was step-up wages. If you're working a position, say an entry-level job, and they come to you and step you up to the next position, then they need to pay you for that. And many companies, many contracts, labor agreements have that language in them. But know your rights. Work with the local. Get involved. One of the things that just amazed me were the number of people that would come to work and you never saw them at a union meeting. You never saw them at the union hall. But the union is everyone. And it's a participation organization.
Right. That always did, and maybe maybe it's just kind of the way that I'm wired. But if I'm going to be a member of an organization, if I'm going to be, a member of an organization that has so much like power over my life, right? I mean, your union is the one negotiating your working conditions and your wages and things like that. I'm going to be paying dues to the union. I want to have a say over what goes on, right? I mean, that's a big reason that I think that unions are so important generally, is that I believe that workers deserve a say on the job. And so it was always very confusing to me that people were willing to sort of, in a union workplace, you uniquely, more than basically every other worker in the country, have a voice on the job. And for you to just, be willing to forfeit that to other people in your union is something that never really made sense to me.
Exactly. And one of the things that they need to stop and consider, 9 times out of 10, and it depends on the local union, I'm sure, but 9 times out of 10, without that voice, without communicating it to your shop steward, to your grievance person, to your committee, without communicating that, they don't know there's an issue.
That's another thing. I really had a hard time getting that through to people at my workplace. I would tell them every time I did a new employee orientation, I was a steward, and I'm like, our union has literally hundreds of people in it. I work in project management. I don't know what goes on in contracting. I don't know what goes on in engineering. I don't know what goes on in finance. You have to tell me if your supervisor is breaking the contract. And so then also you need to know a little bit about the contract yourself. And then you need to know how to get in touch with me. And yes, so I mean, just the very bare minimum of it, at least know who your steward is and read your contract once through. So I think that's really great advice, David. Can you talk to us a little bit about your work for the United Way and what y'all are doing, as an entity down in Birmingham and Central Alabama? I mean, it's really inspiring work, I think.
Certainly. One of the unique things about my position, I work with corporate and labor groups. And we have a really unique situation here. Our partners have really come full circle when it comes to volunteering.
Mm.
Parks, playgrounds, schools, you name it. There is something for everyone to do. Our volunteer program is literally growing every day. We work in 6 counties. And last week we were very, very fortunate to have the operating engineers come up and do the site work at a park in Susan Moore in Blount County. And the iron workers sent a group of apprentices right behind them to construct a pavilion. Next week on the book, we've got apprenticeship trainees from the laborers local 559 coming out to do some concrete form work in preparation to pour 2 pickleball courts. And it's really a huge impact. And the nice thing about it with apprentices, this is really an on-the-job training give back. They get to put to use the skills that they're acquiring to help the community, to make a difference. And at the end of the day, it's like anything else, especially with skilled trades workers. They'll ride by a project years later and say, I worked on that. So it gives them bragging rights because, the first week they're there, they're literally out here on these community volunteer projects.
Yeah, it's really exciting. You talked to some about the, didn't y'all have some apprentices build some sort of school building recently?
Yes, an outdoor classroom. The first one we did was in partnership with Jones Valley Teaching Farm, which is a fantastic program here locally. And the kids not only get to go out, plant, grow, and raise their own vegetables, but now they're tying it in with a culinary program where they learn how to prepare the food that they raised. But we had a great group, several groups, the Birmingham Electrical Joint Apprenticeship Training Center, Ironworkers Local 92 Apprenticeship Training Center. We had the Operating Engineers Local 312 Apprenticeship Training Center. They all came out along with a couple of other different local groups. They all came out. They did a fantastic job. It was completed early, ready for class, and it was a great project. We all had a lot of fun. And at the end of the day, that's what we want them to do, is have fun, take away what they were able to do in the community, and it gives them an opportunity to look back years down the road and say, hey, I made a difference.
Right. Well, and so you talked about how, some of these programs that you're doing have heavily involved some of the local unions' apprenticeship programs, and you've been a big fan of the building trade union apprenticeship programs for a long time. Can you talk a little bit about why you think the building trades apprenticeship programs are so good?
Oh, definitely. Look, it's rather than going into debt for tuition, it is an earn as you learn program. Let's just take the BEJATC 4-year program. Now you go in the door, you've got class time, but you're also being assigned to a project to learn from somebody on the job what you're learning in the classroom. You are paid for those hours. You are accruing pension, you have benefits, and some of the apprentices, upon completion of the program that I've talked to over the last few years, that they've incurred zero debt. Wow. There is zero student debt. And some of them are making 6 figures.
Right. I think that's pretty. That's a pretty compelling argument. I talked to a pipe fitter at one point who, while he was single, he went and worked on a project for a few years in California, and obviously he was working a lot. He was getting per diem, and he ended up without a college degree making like $250,000 in 1 year. Lots of opportunities in the building trades, and one of the things that I think is really, really cool about the building trades unions is that, unlike if you were to go and become an electrician for like a local contractor, if you were to do that, then if work dries up locally, then you get laid off and you don't have anywhere else to go, right? Well, if you are a member of the electricians union, the IBEW, and work dries up locally and you're willing to move, you can go and find work anywhere else in the country, right? And so having that as a backstop, I think there's a lot of security there, and particularly if you're a young person and you're not going to be having kids for a long time, that's a incredible opportunity to go and live all over the country, and in Canada too. Is the building trade unions are international organizations across the U.S.-Canada border, and so really cool opportunities in the building trades, and so Is that the biggest reason that you think that young folks entering the workforce or considering career transition should think about the trades as like it's just a good job, you get paid well?
It is an excellent job. You're acquiring skills, and and I used to do this during orientations. My go-to saying: your skills will pay your bills. Mm. That is without a doubt a very true statement. So, these kids that are graduating today from apprenticeship programs, going back to the ironworkers, you stop and look at some of the kids that have come through. You realize that they're walking out the door certified in multiple welding processes. They're certified in rigging. They're certified in so many different things, but they are job ready. Every apprenticeship program is going to give you a job ready person. OSHA 10, OSHA 30, and that's not where it stops. Most of our apprenticeship programs have continuing education. The goal being, we don't need you to stop once you turn out as a journey person. We need you to keep going. We want you to be that next contractor. We want you to be that next successful subcontractor bidder. That's the ultimate goal.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. The opportunity for advancement is definitely there. And I just saw a member of IBEW 136 started their own contract or electrical contracting company that's a union signatory, and so really exciting opportunity for him and for the local union. Obviously, if you have more union businesses, then being able to create more market share for your members, more work opportunities for your members is really great. So, and I'll say also, as somebody who's also always worked white collar, I would be concerned if I was entering the white collar profession now in the age of AI, without any, at this point I've got like 7 years of experience doing project management, and so I'll probably be okay. But if I had no experience in that kind of a field, I would be really concerned about ChatGPT taking my job, and robots are a little bit further away from being able to do iron work. So.
Exactly.
All right. Well, David Clark, steelworker and electrical worker union member, USW and IBEW, also director of labor relations at the United Way of Central Alabama. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jacob. Have a good day.
Yes, sir. You too. We're going to be taking a break, and when we get back, we're going to be talking to a panel of folks about the TVA. I'm really excited for this conversation. We're going to be talking to Daniel Tait of Energy Alabama, Zachary Barber of the Office and Professional Employees International Union, Keith McFarland of the International Association of Machinists, about the TVA, why it's important, and why we need to push back against the threats to its existence. So stay tuned, folks. You are listening to the Valley Labor Report.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for the Valley Labor Report comes from the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers Union. Learn more by visiting www.ifpte.org.
Are you looking for a better future, a career that can have you set for life, and to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself? If you are, then consider a skilled trades apprenticeship with the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. The work of IUPAT is all around us, from the industrial painters who work on the bridges to drywall finishers, floor coverers, the glazers who install the glass in our skylines, and so much more. With an IUPAT apprenticeship, you earn while you learn and receive benefits while learning the trade, including a pension. We provide world-class education free of charge. That's right, no student debt. Our starting salaries for apprentices that graduate is above the national median salary with benefits for entire families. And you have the flexibility to take your trade wherever you'd like in the country to work. IUPAT District Council 77 covers our entire region, so give Adam Booth a call at 205-603-3142 for more information. Again, that phone number is 205-603-3142. Come build a better future with us today and join IUPAT.
We're the nurses, firefighters, and claims representatives that help keep our government services running. We respond to natural disasters. We care for our nation's veterans, and we investigate discrimination in the workplace. We are federal and D.C. government workers, and we are proud to serve the American people. Working in more than 70 agencies across the government, we know we can fulfill our mission because our union has our back. Learn more at AFGE.org. Paid for by the American Federation of Government Employees, AFL-CIO.
Since 1889, the National Association of Letter Carriers has protected the rights of city carriers as they deliver the mail and offer support for their community. The Alabama State Association of Letter Carriers makes their legislative voices heard when it comes to issues involving the U.S. Postal Service and the working members of the union. The National Association of Letter Carriers has been longtime supporters of the Muscular Dystrophy Association and the Stamp Out Hunger food drive. This message is sponsored by the Alabama Association of Letter Carriers. To learn more, visit NALC.org. Unite Here is also a supporter of the Valley Labor Report. They are a labor union that represents 300,000 working people across Canada and the United States. Their members work in the hotel, gaming, food service, manufacturing, textile, distribution, laundry, transportation, and airport industries. You can learn more about Unite Here at unitehere.org.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
A battle in the heart of Alabama caught our attention. Coal miners in one community, they've been on strike now for months.
Working as long as 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, in some of the most dangerous conditions.
I really think that the labor movement is the single greatest force for democracy in the history of the United States.
The story of Alabama is a story of not just resilience, but of militancy.
I say no contract, you say no code. No contract, no contract.
If we ain't all free, ain't none of us free.
You're listening to Alabama's only union talk radio show, The Valley Labor Report, with Adam Keller and Jacob Morrison.
That's right, folks. From the mountains of Tennessee to the bayous of Louisiana, broadcasting online and on the radio from the heart of the Tennessee Valley, the Spice Radio Studios in Huntsville, Alabama. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host and fellow agitator Adam Keller is out of the studio today, but the absence is excused. I have allowed it. Today, we just had a conversation with David Clark of the United Way of Central Alabama about the work that they are doing and the value of the Building Trade Union apprenticeship programs. We also talked about Athens giving $600,000 to Olive Garden, the city of Athens, Alabama, giving $600,000 to Olive Garden. For some reason, would love to hear your thoughts on that. You can call in 844-899-TVLR or leave us a note at tvlr.fm/contact. We are about to have a conversation with a panel of guests about the Tennessee Valley Authority, one of the best things to happen to residents of the Valley, and we'll talk more about why that is. And then we're going to be talking about more stuff on today's program. We've got a phone number, and the line is open. That phone number is 844-899-TVLR. You can also leave us a voicemail throughout the week at any time. So if you catch this when we are not live and you want to let us know what you think, then you can do that. 844-899-8857. If you haven't gotten enough of us by the time that we wrap up here on the radio, or if you just want to see what we're up to throughout the week, you can find us anywhere you find anything online, in particular at our website, tvlr.fm, but we are also on YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts, all at the Valley Labor Report. Just a reminder, your support helps us stay on the air. Our largest single source of funding comes directly from our listeners, so if you want to become a sustaining member of the program or make a one-time donation, you can go to tvlr.fm/donate or patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. Just a reminder, we got a bunch of cool merch for sale at tvlr.fm/store. And finally, if you're a member of a union, then think about getting your local to sponsor the show. You can reach out to us for more details on that. And I will add a disclaimer that any viewpoints or opinions expressed in this program belong solely to their author and do not necessarily represent any organization or sponsor. We welcome all of our listeners, whether you are on YouTube, Facebook, WVNN, WZZA, WHIV, WG, Means TV, or through your favorite podcast app. We're also proud to be part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network and encourage our listeners to check that out. Means TV, really cool thing. Means TV is a streaming platform that's got lots of good documentaries and political commentary and some original comedy and animated programs. Check it out at means.TV. And if you do that with our promo code TVLR, you get 20% off your first month. That's means.TV, promo code TVLR. Let's go ahead and jump right into last week in Southern labor. Here's what workers in the U.S. South and the American colonies were up to from October 24th to the 31st. Just a reminder that all information on Florida's public sector union elections comes from McKenna Schuler's monthly roundup of Florida union news. You can check it out on her website, caringclassrevolt.substack.com, where you can get more information about Florida labor as well as exclusive details about some of the union elections referenced here. In union elections, the National Labor Relations Board continues to be shut down, but workers are still organizing, including in Florida's public sector, where workers at Volusia County Schools in Deland, Florida, voted 364 to 79 in favor of unionizing with the Volusia United Educators. They were previously represented by the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME, before their union was decertified. 3 fire department district chiefs at the Apopka Fire Department in Apopka, Florida, voted 2-0 in favor of joining an existing unit unionized with the Apopka Professional Firefighters Association, an IAFF affiliate. 157 office workers at the Orange County Sheriff's Office in Orlando, Florida, voted 35-12 in favor of unionizing with the Orange County Sheriff's Lodge number 93, a chapter of the Fraternal Order of Police. 135 workers at the city of Sarasota, Florida, voted 123-2 in favor of recertifying the Citrus Cannery Food Processing and Allied Workers, Drivers, Warehousemen, and Helpers, Local 173, as their union. 587 workers at Columbia County Public Schools in Lake City, Florida, voted 224 to 9 in favor of recertifying the Columbia Teachers Association as their union. 630 workers at Putnam County Public Schools in Palatka, Florida, voted 80 to 4 in favor of recertifying the Putnam Federation of Teachers as their union. 1,141 workers at Okaloosa County Public Schools in Walton Beach, Florida, voted 404 to 25 in favor of recertifying the Okaloosa Education Staff Professionals as their union, and 3,491 workers at Palm Beach County Public Schools in West Palm Beach, Florida, voted 340 to 26 in favor of recertifying the Service Employees International Union, Florida Public Sector Union, SEIU, FPSU, as their union. In grievances, unfair labor practices, and court cases, the Texas Observer has a report out about how Texas's labor law enforcement system is falling apart and failing workers. Workers who report wage theft typically have to wait 9 months for a resolution, and that number came from a prior internal audit before last year saw the highest number of wage theft complaints in the last 9 years and double the number of complaints since 2021. In strikes and bargaining updates, 3,000 workers at Boeing in St. Louis, Missouri, unionized with the International Association of Machinists, IAM District Lodge 837, are still on strike. They voted down Boeing's contract offer for a fourth time on the quarterly earnings call last week. The company boasted of $23 billion in revenue just for the quarter and a positive cash flow for the first time since 2023, despite the fact that they have a $76 billion defense backlog. The company acknowledges that the strike is causing delays, and the union is calling on the company to negotiate in good faith for a fair contract for its members. A supermajority of workers at Volkswagen in Chattanooga, Tennessee, unionized with the United Auto Workers, voted to authorize a strike last week. The union says this comes after months of unfair labor practices committed by the company, including bad faith negotiations, unlawful intimidation, and the unilateral cutting of jobs at Volkswagen's only U.S. assembly plant. They note that Volkswagen made $20.6 billion in profits in 2024 and generates a full 20% of its profits in North America. The company can afford to provide a union contract that honors the hardworking auto workers of Chattanooga. In particular, dispute between the two parties are provisions of the contract dealing with job security, with the UAW saying that Volkswagen's most recent proposal does not include the job security language needed to protect workers from plant closures, outsourcing, or the sale of the Chattanooga facility. Nurses at New Orleans University Medical Center, unionized with National Nurses United, delivered a notice that they would be striking again in November to protest the hospital's refusal to address nurses' concerns about staff retention in an ongoing first contract bargaining. In political and legislative updates, the biggest news is obviously the shutdown, now over a month long. The administration is choosing to not fund SNAP before the money runs out to increase pressure on Democrats to cave. Also adding pressure to Democrats now are an array of unions calling for the passage of a so-called clean CR. The American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE, the largest federal employee union, which represents some 800,000 workers, the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers, IFPTE, which represents another tens of thousands of federal workers, the National Air Traffic Controllers Association, NATCA, several unions, which represent some 100,000 pilots, the Teamsters, and more, have all called on the Democrats to pass a so-called clean CR. Some are more diplomatic than others, though, with IFPTE International President Matt Biggs saying that while a clean CR is what is needed immediately, quote, We recognize the numbers in the CR, and any funding bill at this point are meaningless unless Congress reestablishes its power of the purse. We can pass any CR or any funding bill that we want, but if Russ Vought is allowed to impound funds and spend them in any way he chooses, that language is meaningless. In bad news for federal workers in the Department of Defense, a new memo is instructing management to fire people more quickly and with less due process. In potentially good news for federal workers, though, in the Department of Defense, 16 House Republicans have sent a letter to the Senate and House Armed Services Committee to request that the leaders of those committees retain language in the final NDAA to restore collective bargaining rights for DoD civilian employees. That's a pretty big move. So looking forward to following that story. The Trump FCC voted to allow telecommunications companies to nearly double the rate that they charge prisoners to talk to their families last week. And A.J. McCarron, a former Alabama football quarterback and also minor league football player who opposed the unionization of the USFL and the XFL, is now running for lieutenant governor for Alabama, despite the fact that it appears he has never voted ever, which is crazy. In internal union affairs, the international president of the United Mine Workers of America, UMWA, Cecil Roberts, retired last week. Brian Sanson, who was previously the secretary-treasurer, now takes the reins of the historic union. And Labor Notes has an excellent series of articles by union leaders and activists on the topic of how unions can defend worker power under Trump 2.0. You should check it out. If we missed anything, you can let us know at tvlr.fm/contact or leave us a voicemail at 844-899-TVLR. Okay, so as I said earlier, we're going to be talking to a panel of folks about the Tennessee Valley Authority, one of the best things to happen to residents of the Valley, providing cheap and reliable energy to millions of people while not exploiting their workers like many private utilities do, while providing good-paying union jobs. That's the TVA. Here to talk about the importance of the TVA, what it does well, and the attacks that it's under, we have assembled a panel of guests. Daniel Tait is the executive director for Energy Alabama, a clean energy nonprofit. Zachary Barber is a representative for the Office and Professional Employees International Union, OPEIU, which represents some white-collar professionals for the TVA. And Keith McFarland, business representative for the International Association of Machinists, IAM District 1888, which represents lots of workers for the TVA. Daniel, Zach, Keith, thank you all so much for taking the time to join the Valley Labor Report today. I'll start with the union representatives. Zach, can you talk to us about the work that your members do for the TVA and by proxy for residents of the Valley?
Yeah, and thanks for having us on this morning. So OPEIU's members at TVA help make sure that TVA has what it needs to do its job safely, effectively, efficiently. So some of our members are out there on construction sites, making sure that maintenance teams have the tools they need to keep the jobs running smoothly. Some of our members are back at the headquarters negotiating the contracts to get the work done. Some of our members are also working at the dispatch center for TVA police. It really runs the gamut, but just focused on making sure TVA is running smoothly and safely.
Keith, what about members of the Machinists Union?
Well, they work all over the Valley. We've got people working small tool repair and testing, heavy equipment mechanics, aircraft mechanics. We got maintenance mechanics and machinists in the fossil hydro, nuclear power plants, gas plants. They work at the power service shop all over the Valley, taking care of TVA sites. We have turbine crews that maintain TVA's turbines all across the Valley, and we got folks that work in the research and development department. So we touch all 90,000 square miles of the TVA.
That's incredible. And sounds like really important work. And so, while we're with you, can you talk about how the TVA treats its employees? Like what, and particular, if you know much about private utilities, and I'm interested in the comparison of the TVA and maybe some other private utility providers with respect to how they treat their employees and their relationship with the unions that their employees have elected to represent them.
Well, I can't say the relationship is great. It's actually better now than it's been in many years. And, TVA, with its workforce, it's generational. We've got folks that have worked for TVA for 2, 3, 4 generations, and now coming on 5. And the partnership that we have, it's actually built on trust between TVA and craft respect. It doesn't view its employees for just the machinists, but all the craft unions. It's not about, as a labor input. It recognizes all of us as partners, and it's been decades long. We focus on safety through the agency health and safety programs that we have in place, and the list goes on and on and on. We work with TVA to ensure that we have folks in skilled trades with a career path that leads them down a road to have, jobs that are sustainable for the future. It's not just there's not a high turnover rate at all as it relates to that. We have good wages that we negotiate under the terms and conditions of the TVA Act. I could talk with you for hours as it relates to how this works. TVA provides, they negotiate with the craft unions rates that go into their own apprenticeship programs. On the hourly side of the house, we work with TVA internally with craft training programs and all that stuff. So, I could talk to you again for hours, and we've only got 15, 20 minutes to talk about this, so I'll be quiet right now.
Right. and I think that there's so much, like you said, Keith, that you could talk about as far as how positive the working relationship is between the TVA and its employees and the unions that represent its employees. And I think that really speaks well. And so, but a lot of people listening might hear that and say, oh man, well, the TVA is paying these workers really well. The TVA is doing a lot of things in the name of safety that perhaps would decrease the efficiency. You could do something a little bit more fast and so therefore a little bit more cheaply if you did it less safe. They're paying for, high road job training in the apprentices. They're paying for, they have to spend money and effort in negotiations, whereas non-union employers can just tell their employees what they're going to do, and they can, like it or take a hike. And so people listening might worry and say, oh, wow, they're doing all of these positive things for their workers. Then is that affecting my utility bill? Am I having to pay a huge premium to pay for all of these good things for the workers? But actually, what ends up being the case is the opposite is true, is that residents of the Valley pay something like 30 to 40% less per kilowatt hour. In Alabama, I live in Huntsville. I get my power from the TVA. People south of me get their power from Alabama Power and have to pay 30 to 40% more than I do when I get my power from the TVA that does all of this good stuff for its workers. And so, Zach, I'm curious, how do you square that? How do you square those two facts that, the TVA spending all this money, treating its workers really well, it's still able to provide, some of the cheapest energy in the country to its residents? How does it do that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. In fact, I'm wondering if you read off of my notes, because I had that exact stat prepared to mention. It's not just true in Alabama. TVA's energy rates are lower than 80% of the top 100 utilities nationwide. meaning that people in the valley who pay for TVA electricity are getting better service, cheaper than pretty much any other American. And like all of TVA's benefits, this comes back to the model that TVA was set up with, a really unique public power model. TVA has one job. At the end of the day, its job is to serve the people of the valley. That includes the electricity, that includes the other work that TVA does in economic development, environmental protection, but ultimately TVA answers to the public. Whereas the job of a privately owned utility company, TVA's competition, is to make money. And so that means if you pay your utility bill to that privately owned company, any surplus revenue is probably just going to go back into the pockets of shareholders, executives. But when you pay your money to TVA, surplus money goes back into the valley to making the electric more reliable, more affordable, or it goes into protecting the waterways that people love to fish and boat on, or it goes into economic development to help new businesses grow and thrive in the valley, to come back to its mission, growing out of the Great Depression almost 100 years ago, of helping to serve holistically the needs of the valley. And that's really unique. No other utility company is doing that type of work at this scale. And that's what has enabled TVA for 100 years to be such a beacon of success. There's nothing out there quite like TVA.
Yes, yes, please do, Keith.
Well, to Zach's point, he talked about stockholders, and that's he's exactly right. The TVA, if they were to privatize, those monies would be going into somebody else's pocket. What we have in the Tennessee Valley region is 10 million stakeholders. There's a big difference. If TVA were to privatize, 10 million people would have something to lose.
Right.
And that's money's out of their pocket. So we all have a vested interest here in the Tennessee Valley. All the labor organizations, all the folks, union, non-union, whoever, we all have a stake in this as it relates to TVA not being privatized. And, the other thing with TVA, talk about those investments, the other thing that they do in lieu of taxes, they pay into the communities all across the Tennessee Valley. Wherever they touch, in lieu of tax dollars, goes to those communities for them to utilize.
Right. And the something that I like to say about, the TVA versus private utilities is that they're able, and one of the ways that they are able to, like Zachary was saying, is one of the ways that they're able to offer such cheap energy rates is that you don't, people who get their power from Alabama Power or these other private utility companies, they basically have to pay a shareholder tax. That's what it amounts to, is you have to pay some portion of your utility bill every month that just goes to people who own the thing instead of us owning it, and then we get to reap the benefits of the TVA because ultimately, it's owned by the government, we own it, and so there's not, it doesn't have to make profit, it just has to be sustainable. And it's been able to do that without getting an infusion from the federal government in, I think, 50 years. Since 1979, there's been no tax dollars going to the TVA. It's all self-sustainable. It's an incredible organization. And, Keith and Zachary have talked a little bit about, previewed some of the threats of privatization. But Daniel, I want to go to you because a lot of folks, and particularly your organization, Energy Alabama, which is a clean energy advocacy nonprofit, are really concerned about the risks of privatizing the TVA, and that privatization might put some of the things that we like about the TVA in jeopardy. Why would privatization make it less likely that the TVA is able to both provide cheap energy and good jobs?
We've just heard it perfectly here from Zachary and Keith, right? Privatizing TVA, first and foremost, would be an unmitigated disaster for people's utility bills. Full stop. You've given the example already about what folks to our south who are, incredibly jealous about the fact that we're paying 40% lower utility bills in the same state, and that is happening across the valley. not only is that an issue, but what's even more impressive is that TVA is taking money only from electric revenues and not just providing electricity. I think we heard it a little bit earlier, but the work that they do for keeping the river safe and navigable, the work that they do for all the recreational facilities that they have throughout the valley that people are enjoying every week. And all of that is also paid for out of electric revenue. So not only do they keep it cheaper than, say, Alabama Power, but they're providing other benefits. If TVA is privatized, yes, your bill is going up and going up in a dramatic way. And this is also true when we see private investor-owned utilities try to take over public utilities, no matter where they are, right? So we've seen this playbook in South Carolina. We've seen it in other states. And invariably, someone has to make a profit on that. And that means that you will be paying for higher utility bills. But even more importantly is that from our organization's perspective, as we're trying to advocate for clean energy and, low cost, reliable energy moving forward and making this sustainable in a long-term way, we need to have models like TVA, like public power, that make that affordable, right? So if you have investor-owned utilities with sky-high profit margins like we do in Birmingham and Montgomery here in this state, well, when we're trying to build renewable energy, that makes it artificially more expensive than it needs to be, and people are paying for that. And that's just not what we're trying to do, right? Like, yes, we want to see cleaner energy come on the grid, but not at the expense of regular people and their utility bill. There is a way to do this that actually helps people and lowers the utility bill. And that's some of the beauty about if we can do this right with the public power model, as opposed to the investor-owned utility model that, is really trying to extract profit from that transaction, as opposed to provide value to the residents of the valley.
Are there any other concerns that you're tracking, Daniel, like outside of maybe, the threats to the good jobs of the TVA and the threats to the cheap energy bills that might that might come along with privatization that you're worried about?
I think two that come to mind. One, we kind of heard from Keith already around this idea of payments in lieu of taxes, right? It's like, what happens to this structure, which is, pilot is a fancy way to say that TVA is injecting lots of money into local and state governments where it operates, that is critical to the budget and to the operational performance of our local governments, our counties, our cities. And you have to wonder, right? Like if a private utility comes in, how committed are they to doing that? I mean, yes, probably every entity is going to have to pay a little bit of taxes, but let's be honest, right? Like, most private companies that I see, like Southern Company or Alabama Power, they're going to try to make sure that they pay as little of taxes as possible, and that can have a tremendous impact on residents of the valley. I think, it's not just that power prices are lower, but when you've taken that profit motive out, that you get to expand kind of the universe of what the value TVA is able to provide. And then the second thing that comes to, our mind is, again, as a clean energy advocacy organization, we want to see, renewables, we want to see battery storage, advanced nuclear, all of these things actually take place, not just talked about. And I think that this model, we're really worried about, like, moving forward, if TVA were privatized, that a lot of those investments that would be good for the valley, good for workers, into, hopefully 10 generations forward. Keith said we're 5 in, let's go 10. We want to see that happen. And if we change the model, we're really worried about, can those generational investments be made at scale and really continue to benefit the folks of the valley.
Yes, being publicly owned rather than investor owned really does enable the TVA to have a longer view of investments and like what needs to happen, because they've been the nuclear and the hydro investments are hugely capital intensive at the beginning, but because those investments were made decades ago, we now have cheaper energy because of it, and private investor-owned utilities are less likely to make those investments because they want to have good numbers on the next quarterly earnings call, right? So So Daniel, shifting gears just a bit, but your nonprofit has sometimes had a contentious relationship with utilities. You've been, including the TVA. Actually, I think that Energy Alabama has been in some fights with the TVA before, but it has been really out in. I can't think of another clean energy group that has been more in front of supporting the TVA against the privatization whisper campaign. I can't think of any other clean energy organization that's been more in front of this fight on behalf of the TVA than y'all. Why is that?
Well, you're right. We have fought against utilities and pushed back on them a little bit. And the way I look at it is a little bit as sibling rivalry, right? Like you can't mess with my brother. I can do that, right? That's let's not do that. And the reason that I say that is we have pushed TVA and will continue to push TVA no matter the model, right, to do better. And I think that everybody in the Valley expects TVA to continue to improve and to do better for its workers, to do better for the people of the Valley and the environment. So we're going to continue to do that, full stop. But as I've kind of mentioned earlier, there is no world that I can foresee where any of those things are better with a privatized TVA. I don't see it better for clean energy. I don't see it better for rates. I don't see it better for the workforce. I mean, so yes, we are a clean energy advocacy organization, but we are not an organization that is, about clean energy above all else. If it doesn't do good for people, then it's not good to do. If it doesn't do good for the pocketbooks of the people of the Valley, then it's not good to do, right? This is not just let's solve for one part of the equation. It's got to be all of the above. And so when we looked at, what is really likely to happen under a privatized scenario, I don't see any positive from it whatsoever. And so while we may fight TVA from time to time, we're going to protect that model and protect TVA from, those changes that would be extremely detrimental to the future of the Valley.
We're talking about the Tennessee Valley Authority and some of the concerns that folks have about the threat of privatization. We have a panel of guests on right now. Daniel Tait is the executive director for Energy Alabama. You just heard from him. Zachary Barber, also on the line, is a representative for the Office and Professional Employees International Union, OPEIU. And Keith McFarland is a business representative for the International Association of Machinists, IAM, District 1888. And we've been talking about how the TVA's public power model is good for workers. It's good for the residents in terms of cheap energy. It's good for, city and county governments. And somebody in the chat just mentioned it's also good for businesses. Free American in the chat says TVA rates have drawn many manufacturers to the service area. That's Toyota has a much lower utility bill than Mercedes does, obviously, right? And so it's also good for business that we have such cheap energy rates in the Tennessee Valley. And so, Keith, the Trump administration has nominated, and we have had Senate hearings for, and now the Senate committee has recommended the approval, have passed it out of committee, of 4 nominees to the TVA's board of directors. They have not been confirmed at this time, but those nominees are, let's see if I can find the names really quickly. Randall Jones of Alabama, an insurance agent. Florida Public Service Commissioner Art Graham. Mitch Graves, a Knoxville attorney, and Jeff Haygood. Oh, no. Jeff Haygood is the Alabama insurance agent. Randall Jones is Florida Public Service Commissioner. I don't know. Mitch Graves, Jeff Haygood, Randall Jones, and Art Graham have all been nominated. How is the IAM, the International Association of Machinists, looking at these nominees?
Well, you have to, I've had some discussion. You have to have a wait and see kind of attitude as it relates to this. Some of them don't appear to have the experience needed to be able to move for the future with TVA, but we don't know that. We don't know how they'll be, but and we'll have to wait. As you said, they're out of committee. But there's a few things we do know. We don't want our energy prices to go up. We don't want TVA to be privatized. We don't want our recreational facilities to go away. And the list goes on and on and on. So you have to wait and see. The big tell will be, I think, with the new potential nominations coming up as the current board's term limits expire. I think that'll be the tell. That's
Zach. Oh, go ahead, Keith.
No, I'm done. Go ahead.
Zachary, all the nominees did say in their hearings that they would oppose privatization when they were, do you support privatization? The answer was no across the board. But most of them left the door open to the sale of TVA assets. What is privatization but the sale of assets? Zachary, how can you help me understand the difference there, and what would it mean for the agency if they sold off some of the assets rather than maybe wholesale privatization?
Yeah, you can think about it like this. Imagine you're on a road trip, you're driving your car, you're several hours in, everything's been going fine, and then the driver says, I'm thinking about taking off one of the tires of the car. What would happen, right? That's what we're looking at here. The TVA is designed to have these functions that support each other. It's designed to have electrical generation stations that work in harmony with each other to provide power. And so if you start chopping it up and selling it off, you're taking apart the thing that has made it successful. For example, one of the things that helps TVA supply reliable energy at an affordable rate is by having a mix of different types of generation. So you can think of things like nuclear, which provide a lot of power very stably, and then that is complemented by other sources like solar or gas, which provide less energy but can be ramped up or down over time as demands change. So on hot days, they can increase their generation to provide more energy into the grid. If we sold off all of one of those columns of the generating portfolio, then TVA would be less able to meet the demands and needs of the valley. It would lead to increased duplication of infrastructure, redundancy. People would be paying twice for things that you don't need to pay twice for. And it would just threaten the long-term stability of TVA, which has been working for almost 100 years now. So if it isn't broke, why would we want to fix it? And that's why we know that selling off TVA, whether it's total privatization, selling off part of the assets, this will undermine what has made TVA successful. It'll lead to higher energy bills for the public. It'll lead to worse economic conditions as businesses have to make tough decisions. It'll hurt jobs at TVA, worker protections, and it will lead to worse fishing on degraded waterways. It's a lose, 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 whether you call it privatization or anything else.
So, Zachary, if it really does seem to, I hear people, Tim Burchett in Tennessee is a public proponent of privatization. There are some other people. I think Tommy Tuberville has expressed tentative support for privatization. There really is, you just go down the line and you think of any possible impact that privatization could have on residents of the valley, on businesses, on communities, and it all seems negative. So why do people keep talking about it? Why do people keep saying that, oh, well, maybe this is something that we should do?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one I ask myself a lot, because we saw in the last decade the impacts of privatizing other publicly owned utilities, not electric, but water. And it led to things like the Flint water crisis and other lead issues in other cities across the country as privately owned utility companies were coming in and implementing aggressive cost-cutting measures with no regard to service or safety. And we would be looking at the same type of thing with our electrical grid. And I don't know anybody who wants to pay more for less reliable power. The main people who would benefit from this are the people who would be making money at our expense off of this. Private utility companies would love to be able to move in and expand, buy up some of this stuff and start making money off of it. But the stakes are too high. There's too much that we would lose. And we have to keep TVA public because it's been so successful for so many people for so long.
So, Daniel, if folks are listening to this and they're like, okay, you've convinced me, the TVA, the public power model is really good, and I'm concerned about the threats to privatization, or the threats of privatization. What is there to do? Because right now, there isn't a bill on the House floor to privatize the TVA. All of the nominees are saying, at least publicly, I oppose the privatization, even though they're leaving open the door to selling of assets. But what is there for people to do in the meantime? Like, how can folks support the TVA right now?
Yeah, I think there's probably 2 or 3 things that are most important for folks to pay attention to and do. One is to stay up to date on what's happening, because I anticipate that as things change, they're going to move pretty fast, right? I personally believe that it is very unlikely that we see like some act of Congress to actually just completely obliterate the TVA. I'm planning for them to do that in the worst case scenario, but my hope is that with the folks that you see here and all across the valley, we will have such a united defense that we will be able to stop anything like that. So the next option, right, is something we've talked about before, which is essentially like privatizing in place. And this is what they left the door open to, and why I don't trust anyone until nothing is privatized, because especially when you think about the transmission system, that's actually like kind of the weakest link. It's what actually connects this entire system together. And private control of that is actually private control of the entire system. And so we are trying to pay close attention to what's happening. If things start to move any more than they are, in fact, I would argue, go ahead and do this, right? Is that we need to make sure that our local leaders, and that means down to the city level, the county level, and our state elected officials understand that the people are against privatization, and that any action by the TVA board to privatize in part, or by Congress to privatize in whole, will be met with fierce resistance. The second thing that I would say is that, in your community, if you're listening to this, there is highly likely to be some group, for Alabama, that might be us, or some other group in your state or your local union. If you're a member of OPEIU or the Machinists, like, you need to get involved with those organizations in this fight to be ready and activated when we need to take action. And so that would be my second thing, is get involved with organizations that are in your local community. And then just kind of a little preview for listeners is that we, and many of us across the valley, are trying to work together to build a website right now around saving TVA, so that there'll be a place that people can go to learn about the threat of privatization, what it would really mean for folks. And that would be a good place to get updates, so that you can stay up to date for what's happening and know who is in your community that you can get active with should anything take a negative turn here.
And that website's not live yet?
No, not live yet, but you'll be the first to know, right? I wanted to make sure people knew that we were taking this seriously and building it now.
Yeah, absolutely. We will we'll pass that on as soon as we get that. We've been talking to Daniel Tait, Executive Director for Energy Alabama, Zachary Barber, Representative for the Office and Professional Employees International Union, Keith McFarland, Business Representative for the International Association of Machinists, District Lodge 1888. Folks, is there anything else that you think that we ought to leave folks with before we let you go?
I just repeat, public power has worked successfully at TVA for generations. It allows people to pay some of the most affordable energy rates in the country while getting cleaner waterways and a stronger economy out of it. That's too important. Why would we mess with that now? We have to protect TVA's public power.
I think that's a great place to end it.
Yeah, sorry, Jacob. I'd just say that, some folks, some folks say, why are we spinning up over what might just be the rumor mill? And I would say that this is so important to the foundation of literally every single thing that our economy is built on in the Valley, and the monthly bill that people pay. Like, everything in this is so important that we have no choice, right? But to make sure that we stand united against privatization and be ready to fight in full force.
Yeah, and one thing, TVA was created out of the New Deal in 1933. We're looking at almost 100 years. Want to make it clear that TVA and the Tennessee Valley Authority has not outlived its purpose. It still has a long ways to go for the people of this valley.
Daniel, Zachary, Keith, thank you all so much for your time, and thank you for your work to defend the TVA. It's a very important institution for the people of the Valley, so appreciate your work. Hope folks will get involved, and we will pass along that website once it is live. Thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break, and we will be right back to wrap up the first half of the show. Stay tuned. The Laborers International Union of North America, LIUNA, Local 366, is proudly recruiting North Alabama local workers to work construction and nuclear plant maintenance. If you're interested, please contact April at our training center to start the process at 256-904-1753. No experience is needed. We offer free training, but you must be able to pass a background check and a drug test. Local hiring that grows our community with good-paying jobs that have benefits is our mission. Live better, work union, Local 366, feel the power. The Valley Labor Report is also supported by the Communication Workers of America. Learn more at CWA-union.org.
Support for this program is provided by the International Association for Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local Lodge 44 in Decatur, Alabama. Learn more at IAMAW44.org.
The Valley Labor Report is also sponsored by the United Automobile, Aerospace, and Agricultural Implement Workers of America, better known as the UAW. They are one of the largest and most diverse unions in North America, with members in virtually every sector of the economy. UAW-represented workplaces range from multinational corporations, small manufacturers, and state and local governments, to colleges and universities, hospitals, and private nonprofit organizations. The UAW has more than 400,000 active members and more than 580,000 retired members in the United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico. You can learn more about the UAW and join at uaw.org. The Valley Labor Report is also sponsored by Labor Notes. Labor Notes is a media and organizing project that has been the voice of union activists who want to put the movement back in the labor movement since 1979. You can learn more about Labor Notes at labornotes.org.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for this program also comes from the Mid-South Council of Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. Learn more at rwdsu.info.
Union leaders, do you want a powerful website and mobile app built just for your members? The Union Active system, created by Unions America, makes it easy to share news and documents, send alerts, and keep your members engaged anytime, anywhere. Trusted by thousands of unions, Union Active streamlines communication so you can focus on what matters most, your members. With real-time updates, secure messaging, and custom features built for unions, you'll keep your members informed and engaged 24/7. Get Union Active today. Visit unionactive.com to learn more. Union Active, the ultimate website and communication system for unions.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell. How the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Labor creates all wealth. All wealth should go to labor. You're listening to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host Adam Keller is out again this week, but I allowed it. Union Gus says Labor Notes had a really nice piece on their podcast yesterday about how the movie They Live could be used as a demonstration of hard-learned organizing tactics. Interesting. I have not seen that movie. We'll do Boss Watch here really quick, and then we're going to wrap up the first half of the program. We got a great second half. We're going to be talking to Sara Nelson, president of the Flight Attendants Union. We'll also be taking your calls at 844-899-TVLR. Really excited to have this conversation. But first, let's get to Boss Watch. Over in North Carolina, WRAL has the story of a lawsuit being filed in Durham County by three sisters who say they are owed money for working as camp counselors for CJF America. WRAL Investigates reported in August about another lawsuit that was filed by 7 former employees from multiple states. WRAL has also reported for months on the Durham-based company accused of not paying its employees and on criminal charges against 3 of its executives. The most recent lawsuit, filed Monday, seeks unpaid wages for 3 workers. They are represented by Raleigh attorneys Jonathan Marks and Philip Thomas, who also represent the plaintiffs in the first lawsuit. And so the WRAL article quotes the workers about how, not being paid put them in a financial strain. One of them, Thompson, 21, says, I haven't been able to pay rent in like 4 months. I have never worked anywhere and not gotten paid. Obviously, before this one. The complaint describes a disorganized summer camp environment, stating during her time as a camp counselor at CJF, Jasmine Thompson was in charge of approximately 36 children aged 5 to 7, sometimes with no assistance from another adult. In addition to understaffing, she saw that the camp was poorly run. Meals, which the camp was supposed to arrange, did not arrive on time, and the camp did not provide any activities for the children to do besides watch TV. Oh, Lord. I mean, that's a pretty wild. Last month, CJF America founder Courtney Jordan and Chief Financial Officer Nicholas Gallardo are facing charges of felony conspiracy and obtaining property by false pretenses. Those warrants remain unserved. Seems like this is not a super great company. And then we'll wrap up with Union Busters. This segment of Boss Watch covers national updates. It's sponsored by Labor Lab. Labor Lab is an employer watchdog organization committed to safeguarding the right to organize through unions, collective bargaining, and mutual aid. They do this by combing through reports that Union Busters are required to file with the Department of Labor. Here are the new filings from last week. 3M in Springfield, Missouri, hired Lewis Labor Relations. Long Island Jewish Medical Center in New York hired Heightened Solutions for $475 an hour. Amazon in California hired Keith Williams as a subcontractor for Road Warrior Productions for $2,200 a day. These people are being paid hundreds of dollars an hour, thousands of dollars a day to try to bust unions. And a lot of times folks don't even know that they're being paid at all. That's why these laws are here, that they have to do these filings. But due to a lack of enforcement, some of these labor relations consultants might disregard the law and fail to report their activities to the U.S. Department of Labor. That's why it's important for organizers and workers to report suspected persuader activity to the U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Labor Management Standards. You can do that by sending them an email or giving them a call. The U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Labor Management Standards, OLMS. If you need assistance with that, you can contact Labor Lab at contact@laborlab.us. Contact@laborlab.us. Really appreciate everybody hanging out with us today. I think we had a good show. Really enjoyed that conversation about the TVA. Really looking forward to our conversation in overtime with Sara Nelson, International President of the Association of Flight Attendants. We will also be taking your calls at 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8845. 888-848-9457. You can find us online at Facebook or YouTube at The Valley Labor Report to continue watching the program. We got a whole second half of the program for you that's going to be online. Facebook, YouTube, The Valley Labor Report. And if you missed any portion of the show, you can go to our YouTube page and go back and watch the stream, or you can go back and watch individual videos that we release all throughout the week. We also have newsletters that you can subscribe to at TVLR.fm, where you get the exhaustive versions of Last Week in Southern Labor and Boss Watch. So subscribe to get that in your inbox every Monday and Tuesday mornings. TVLR.fm to get Last Week in Southern Labor and Boss Watch in your inbox. And buy our merch, TVLR.fm/store. And if you like what you hear, help us stay on the radio, TVLR.fm/donate. That's it for us in the first half of the program. If you don't follow us online, we'll see you next week. All right. We're off the radio now. Appreciate everybody staying tuned. Looking forward to the second half of the program. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell. How the good old union has come in here to dwell.
This is Overtime, a production of the Valley Labor Report, the largest union talk radio and online news outfit in the South. Coming to you from the heart of the Tennessee Valley in the Spice Radio Studios in Huntsville, Alabama. We are run by working people and for working people in the South and all over the country. My name is Jacob Morris, and my co-host is Adam Keller. He's out this weekend. We appreciate you spending some time with us. If you'd like to call in, the phone number is 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. We do have a caller on the line. This caller from a 270 area code. Let's go ahead and bring them on the air. 270 area code. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name's Randy Whalen. I'm with local UAW 3047 out of Elizabethtown, Kentucky. I'm here with Becky Staley, who is also out of UAW 3047. I'm the recording secretary. She is a trustee and the women's committee chair and president of the Kentucky Tennessee UAW Women's Committee.
Incredible, Randy, Becky. Yeah, thanks for calling in.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for calling in. I appreciate y'all doing that. We were talking, Randy, you and I. You had sent me a post about how the UAW had gone out and supported the Starbucks practice picket, and so I asked if you had time to call in. I'd love to hear about it. And Becky, really glad you were able to join as well. Could you talk to us a little bit about why is that something that y'all wanted to support as the UAW?
So for us, something that they teach within the UAW is that it's not just about us. We have to stand up for all workers. And so we realize that there's a lot of different unions in our area. And Starbucks, it's a lot smaller than us. They have a lot fewer employees.
Uh-oh. Have we lost?
Have been.
Hey, Becky, I think that we lost you for a second. You were saying that Starbucks, the union at Starbucks, has a lot fewer employees than y'all.
Yes. So obviously, as a barista, they have a lot less than factory workers do. So whenever it comes time for them to stand up and go out and do a practice picket, the more voices that they have, the more that we get out in the community to show that their fight is just as important as our fight, because we have CWA, we have SEIU, we have Workers United, we have all of these places in our area that are all fighting for the same things. And we just truly believe that if we come together and all of us from the different unions stand up and support one another, then it gives us a better opportunity to stand up for all working class people instead of just the UAW working class people.
I think that's really important. You have a lot of folks that really, they really look down on folks who work at Starbucks, and they consider folks who work in automotive manufacturing facilities that's the real working class, and we want to support those unions, but we really don't care so much about the Starbucks workers. And so it's really great to see auto workers themselves saying, no, we're all workers, and we all deserve better, and we want to support one another. I think that's really great. How many people were you able to get out? How big a contingent did you have from the UAW on their practice picket line?
So we ended up having, I think, 5 or 6 of the UAW members show up.
Right.
They had some additional Starbucks people that showed up from different areas. But because we were able to bring a crowd of our own, we actually were able to double the amount of people that they had on their practice picket, which I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but considering the very first time that we showed up for them, they had like 4 people out there, and that's just the amount of people that they were able to get out. So when even offering 5 or 6 that we could get together on our own time in our own spaces when we have a shutdown right now. So it was a way to kind of get some of our aggression out and also show that, we do stand up for them. We're there when they call, just like I know that if we need to do something, we can call the Starbucks workers and they're going to show up for us just as much. And I really want to get out of that antiquated thought process of one job is better than another. because I don't believe in that. We are all Americans chasing our form of the American dream, whether that's a barista or an auto worker or a communications worker or a teacher.
Uh-oh. We lost you again. Whether it's a Starbucks worker, or an auto worker, or a communications worker, and then you cut out. Is that on our end? Are we cutting her out?
We don't know what happened there.
Okay, now I hear you again, Randy.
Yeah, sorry. Anyways, with what Becky was saying, that we're not only promoting Starbucks workers, which need a contract. We have gone to other places as well. Monument Chemical in Brandenburg last year had 3 different unions on strike at the same time. There was UA 502, IBEW 369, and SEIU, and I can't remember the number. Was it 32? Okay. Anyways, they were all out, and we didn't just show up there once and say we support you. We showed up there almost every weekend until they went back in. And this is the thing that we feel that we need to do across the country: support each other's unions. To do that, to build our strength.
Absolutely.
It's one thing to say that we support you, but it's a whole nother thing to show up and be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's right. Are y'all making these connections through your labor council, or like is that how you're coming into contact with these workers and knowing about the Starbucks, their practice picket line and these other workers going out on strike, or do y'all have these connections outside of the labor council?
So I wish it was as simple. We actually want to create a labor council here because we don't currently have one. So we're having to actually make these connections kind of ourselves. The way that we got in contact with Starbucks workers is Randy and I are super nerds. We're always trying to figure out what's going on locally with other unions, what's going on in our communities. And that's how we found out the first time about Starbucks. They didn't even know we existed. So we really want to we've been trying to make these contacts ourselves with other local unions to try to form a labor coalition in our area.
Right. It was completely by accident that the first time, this is the second picket we've done with Starbucks here in Elizabethtown. The first one was totally by accident. They happened to post a Facebook post saying they were going to do a practice picket, and I called Becky and said, let's go. So we did. And it's just, and we do that. We've been to, when 862 up in Louisville, the Kentucky truck plant was on strike. We were there. As I said, Monument Chemical. We went up to GE Aerospace in Erlanger, Kentucky, right next to the Cincinnati Airport, which is in Kentucky, by the way. Right. And we stood on the picket line with them. If we found anybody local or within a certain distance from us, we want to support them so that they support us when we're having trouble too. Or not just trouble, but we need to support each other as union members across the base because we're getting attacked from all sides, especially in Washington, D.C.
And the reality is the UAW, the SEIU, the CWA, the pipe fitters, we are separate, but genuinely the same.
Right. We're part of the Kentucky AFA-CWA.
And whenever we come together, we bring our ideas together. I actually went to a women's summit earlier this year, and one of the most powerful things that one of the ladies, she was a teacher out of Jefferson County, she said people treat unions like a vending machine. They want to put their union dues in and they expect a product. She said we need to start treating our union dues more like a gym membership. You pay your fee and then you go in that gym and you get stronger. And that resonated with me because that is true. But we're not just fighting for the workers at our facility. Most of America is made up of working class people, and unions are really the backbone in trying to make sure that they are protected at work. They get fair wages. They get an even playing field no matter where they come from, any of those factors that they try to use to divide us. And so part of that starts with us also standing up for people like baristas, because just because they're baristas doesn't mean that they're less than us. We are all fighting for the same things.
Well, Randy and Becky, I really appreciate y'all taking the time to call in, but more than that, I appreciate the work that you're doing to try to build solidarity between workers in your area. We actually had to do the same thing. We had to recharter our labor council in North Alabama like 5 years ago. And so, Randy, if you wouldn't mind sending me a message on Facebook with your email address, and I will send you some resources and, some notes that I have from my time, helping to recharter our labor council. So, Randy, Becky, it was great hearing from you. Appreciate what y'all are doing.
We appreciate that greatly, number one. Number two, we also wanted to mention the shout out for Blue Oval SK, which is 10 miles down the road from us.
Mm-hmm.
And so far their victory with the UAW, that was hard fought, and it was fought out of our local union hall here in Elizabethtown.
Fantastic. Appreciate it, y'all. Thanks so much.
All right.
All right. I believe that we have Sara in the Zoom. Sara Nelson is the international president of the Association of Flight Attendants, really one of the few labor celebrities that we have in the 21st century. Sara, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the program. I really appreciate it.
Jacob, I'm so happy to be here. And let me just say, I come out of communications. So what I really, really appreciate about your show is that you're not just reporting on this. You're active in trying to build the labor solidarity and worker power that we need to change everything in this country.
Well, I appreciate it. I try to think of our project as a very movement-centered sort of thing. We're all union members involved in the project, active in our unions and in our labor councils and stuff like that. So we try to be active and participate in the movement. We just had a call, somebody talking about how the UAW local in their area was on a Starbucks picket line. So really exciting to be a part of it, and really excited to have you on. I want to talk about your thoughts on the labor movement more generally and kind of where we go from here. But obviously, you're the AFA president, and I want to talk to you some about some AFA specific things. And I'm seeing, for instance, on your website, just recently, Mesa flight attendants on the airline Mesa just ratified a new contract by 94% ahead of the start of merger talks between, I think, Mesa and Republic. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you were able to win in that contract and how the AFA and the other unions involved in these airlines are preparing for the merger talks between these two airlines?
I'll try to do this quickly, Jacob. So there's, first of all, you have to understand that there are two tiers in aviation, like many of the other industries. And this is a business model that we have to break through. This is not like two tiers in the same contract or even in the same exact workplace. But regional carriers fly for mainline carriers like United, American, Delta, and Alaska. But these flight attendants on regional jets that are branded with those major brands are making on average about 45% less than their mainline counterparts. So this is two-tiered employment that we are trying to bust through in aviation. And we have to do that by building enough power to bust through that business model. That's going to take a little bit longer. But in the meantime, we're working really hard to make sure that the regional flight attendants are not falling further and further behind. So we've made big gains at the main lines over the past couple of years. We're still in the process of finishing that, but we need to have the same formula, at least on the regional side. So Mesa flight attendants have traditionally been paid the lowest, even among those regional carriers. So it's really important to bring them up. They were in what we call Section 6 negotiations under the Railway Labor Act. And just to remind people, or tell you for the first time if you haven't heard it, the Railway Labor Act contracts do not expire. There is no automatic strike deadline. they become amendable, and that is when we can negotiate for our next contract. But oftentimes those contract negotiations are dragged out for a very long time. So Mesa had been about a year past their amendable date when this merger was announced. And we hurried up and said to the Mesa management, look, you got to finish out these contract negotiations right now, lock in the provisions that we've already negotiated and match the pay with Republic flight attendants, because otherwise we're not talking with anybody about how this merger will go forward. And between the Teamsters who represent the flight attendants at Republic and AFA at Mesa, we actually have the ability to slow down that merger. So we got them to do that. We got them to equalize that pay with Republic so that the flight attendants are going into these merger talks on the same ground. Now, this is a local of the Teamsters that I'm just going to be honest with you. 10 years ago, we had to sue them. We had to sue the Teamsters local because they stapled another group, Midwest flight attendants, seniority to the bottom of their list. And we had to sue them under federal law that we had just gained and preserved a process to integrate that seniority integration. So that was some bad blood. But the Teamsters local has been reinvigorated. This is what's so important for people to hear. Your union is the tool. Don't tear down the union, but use it. Read the Constitution and get involved and change your union through your own action. So that's what happened in this local. And a local president who's a member of the Teamsters for a Democratic Union won a couple of years ago. He is changing this local. He is a man of solidarity, and he is a labor brother to me. And so we talked, and we have been able to stop management from pitting the unions against each other, which is what they typically do in these mergers, and say, no. We're going to hold off and talk about representation after. We're going to take care of the workers first. So we were able to lock in that contract for Mesa flight attendants, and we're right back in negotiations now to get improvements through this merger and using the leverage of our two unions working together. And then in another year, we'll be right back in Section 6 negotiations for Republic and Mesa. So we're going to get some pretty substantial compensation wins in the next couple months again, and then set them up for even more when they fight on the entire contract in another year.
That's incredible to hear about the increased collaboration between the two unions, because it can be so easy for management, or that's one of the first things that they try to do is they try to whipsaw unions, locations against another location, unions against unions. So I'm really glad to hear that relationship is developing in a more positive way, and that the Teamsters Union is being more solidaristic. Back in July, you talked some about the main airlines versus the regional airlines. United Airlines is obviously one of the big players. Flight attendants at United voted to go back to the bargaining table. Can you talk to folks about what the key issues are for United flight attendants? And maybe, I don't know how much you can speak about negotiations as they're going on, but anything that you can talk to us about there and what next steps you're anticipating.
Yeah, so we are back at the bargaining table, and even though it was a $6 billion increase and about a 40% increase to compensation for flight attendants right off the bat, what has happened is that since 9/11, we have been in constant times of austerity. And whether it was the bankruptcies where a lot was taken away from us, or the mergers where United and Continental did successfully pit the workers against each other. It has been 20 years of really rough times, and the expectations are very high in this contract bargaining. So some of the key issues, of course, are wages. United Airlines is making billions of dollars now off of our backs, and there is a higher expectation for that. There is an expectation around some flexibility rules for flight attendants, and also very, very clear language. So a lot of this is going back to the table and having a lot more clarity and accountability for the company to follow the contract. So these are real-time gripes that are felt by flight attendants right now, and they're demanding that some of these issues be fixed, and we not only get more out of this contract bargaining, but we actually have a better quality of life too.
The quality of life issues are something that I really would like to see unions focus in even more on. So much of our negotiations are about, what is the percentage wage increase, and not about am I going to be able to like have some time off, like have some time with my family? Am I going to get breaks? Is the working conditions going to be safe? And so glad to hear that's going to be a big part of the
And let me just say
negotiations.
that we're in mediation, and so we had dates scheduled for this past week for negotiations. I'm not being real direct on what those proposals are, because I want to make sure that the negotiators have a chance to report out to the members before I'm breaking news. So they are. So they went back to the table this week, but that's only with the agreement from the company, because our negotiations are in limbo right now across the industry, because with the government shutdown, the National Mediation Board is shut down and those federal mediators are on furlough. So the company is engaging with us. I think we did a good job, frankly, of beating this out of them, making them understand that they have to reach an agreement with us when we got the last TA. So they are engaging, and I'm hopeful that we're going to have a tentative agreement by the end of the year or early January that flight attendants can vote on.
I really appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to seeing the next TA that they're able to get, and hopefully, we'll see them ratify it. I'm sure it's going to be a lot better than it was before. So, and it was already like not bad before. So, looking forward to seeing that come out. You mentioned the shutdown. And I want to talk, there's a whole lot that, I'm interested in your thoughts on, but you mentioned the shutdown, and so I want to move into that. The Trump administration is really, even before the shutdown, inflicting a lot of pain on the American people, but he did that with more votes from the working class than I've ever seen a Republican get. So the most votes from the working class by a Republican in my lifetime. What do you think accounts at least for the support that he had back last year in November among working folks, and including among some union members, although his union support's always been kind of exaggerated? And what do you think needs to happen to beat Trump and Trumpism?
Yeah, well, people talk about the union vote, but the union vote is 6% in the private sector. I mean, we're just not big enough. And that is the problem, frankly. That is the fundamental problem. We have massive inequality. It's higher than it was before the Great Depression. That is because we have shrunk to just 6%. We're down lower than we were right before the Great Depression even. And so we are the only check on corporate greed. We're the only check on capitalism. And so here we are where people do not have the basic social construct that was built up by worker power, that you go to job. One job is enough to take care of an entire family with a decent home, health care, the ability to have a stable retirement, and the ability to send your kids to school without everybody living under a debt sentence for the rest of their lives. So that basic social construct has been beaten down. That was beaten down by President Reagan firing the air traffic controllers in 1981, who were out on strike for not only double-digit raises, but also a 32-hour work week. When he broke that strike, he sent some of the air traffic controllers to jail, broke their union. They reorganized a couple of years later. But we have been suffering the results of the firing of those air traffic controllers all this time. They've been understaffed, so that in 1981, they were fighting for that 32-hour work week that they deserved and we all deserve, and would have set a bigger standard for all of labor. And instead, we've gone backwards. People don't have even a 40-hour work week anymore. If you have two people working, it's usually not enough. They have to work overtime, or they've got to work a second job to get by. And so here we are. People are frustrated, and they have been voting this entire time since 1980. And it's been both Democrats and Republicans. And the electorate has not seen a difference. The working class has only seen our lives go backwards. So Donald Trump is not encumbered by the truth. So he was out there, promising the world and speaking directly to what people are feeling and hurting, and working to their most basic instincts of competition with each other, stoking that division, using the union busters model of divide, delay, distract, and demoralize to get people to believe that, they need to be angry about their neighbor who's taking things away from them, rather than being angry at the billionaires who have created this situation. So that's where we are, and we just have to be real about that. And the only way to change that is to build up worker power organize and have the working class understand that we shouldn't be pitted against each other. This current shutdown, and I want to pause for a second because I want to hear your questions, but this current shutdown is an example of that divide, delay, distract, and demoralize tactic even more.
Mm. Well, and I want to talk about in the shutdown in just a second, but what I heard there is that it seemed like generally it seems like your argument is that the labor movement right now is frankly kind of too weak to be enough of a pushback and against the negative effects of Trumpism, and so we really need to focus on building worker power and building our union density and getting back to a place where we have more power that we can exert over the economy and over politics. Is that kind of your biggest prescription for, or your biggest the thing that you think that the labor movement should be focusing on to beat back the negative effects of Trumpism is building the labor movement rather than any particular intervention in politics or anything like that?
Okay, so yes, fundamentally yes. But what we also need to have as a labor movement is a coordinated action against what's happening now, because we have to shore people up now. People, when they have healthcare, when they have basic needs in their life met, they're more likely to take the time and have the time to think about the power that they could have to get more. They're more likely to come out for someone else because they have the time to do that. So we do need to be strategic right now. And there is a fundamental lack of leadership in the labor movement right now. And I should be clear, when I say labor movement, typically what I mean is the entire working class, because it's not just people who hold a union card. It's anybody who wants to be in a union, who wants to exert that power in their workplace. But when people typically say the labor movement today, they're talking about the current unions and current union members. So there should be a lot more organization within the existing unions today to exercise that solidarity and to use our collective power, look where our choke points are, and be more strategic about that. But what we really have to do is wake the entire working class up to our power. Now, what I will say is we're seeing a strike for recognition right now in Shelbyville, Indiana, with the Teamsters, that same local that I'm negotiating with. These are 200 dealers in the casino who I was out on the picket line with them last Saturday, and they are making $6 an hour and pooling tips. And management requires them to take unpaid PTO for their vacation or sick time, but will tell them at the end of their shift, you can't leave. You're going to have forced overtime tonight, and give them no warning for that. And then not give them their vacation that's unpaid until 2 weeks before their vacation time. So how does anyone plan for that? Your point about being able to live our lives, have bread and roses too, is so critically important here. And so they're out on strike right now for recognition because the government shutdown and the dismantling of the NLRB has meant that their election was delayed. And it was delayed into the time of the shutdown. And so then the company would not agree to hold an election under the NLRB standards with a third party who could have run that. And so they're out on strike. They're saying, we're not going to wait anymore. We want to have our union right now and get to the table and start negotiating a contract. Think about that. They're out on strike right now just to form their union so that they can get to the table to negotiate a contract. And we should all be sending them a lot of love right now. But that is the kind of action that needs to happen everywhere. People need to understand that we're likely not going to be able to get to certifications of unions because of this dismantling of the National Mediation Board under the Railway Labor Act, the NLRB under the NLRA, the dismantling of federal sector contracts. We're going to have to express our worker power in order to be able to get ahead. And that's the kind of awakening that we need among the entire working class, and what we can actually do when we practice that solidarity together and exercise our power by withholding our labor to make the capitalists come to the table with us.
The casino strike for recognition is a really exciting story. We had one of the dealers actually call in last week and talk to us about that. Enjoyed getting to hear from them, and that is a direct effect of the government shutdown, right? I mean, like they had an election scheduled, and they were gonna kind of try to play nice with the casino, and now the NLRB is not able to do the election, and so they said, look, you should really recognize us, or we're going to strike, and so that's a super exciting story, I think.
Yeah, it is super exciting. And I don't think it's just because of the shutdown. These workers want their union right now, and the company was delaying them. And so they were like, we're going to take action no matter what the conditions are. And it just so happens that the shutdown made it really damn clear there's not going to be any election. The company's not going to agree to that. There's no government entity to be able to force them to do it. And so we're going to take it into our own hands and get out here and hold the company accountable.
And so with, that being one of like the sort of side effects of the shutdown, there's lots of stuff happening. I mean, the Trump administration is prematurely ending SNAP benefits now, as of today, is my understanding. Illegally, yes. Federal workers are furloughed, not being paid for work. American people losing access to essential services. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy chastising air traffic controllers for taking sick days. And yet... Well, and because of some of this, we've seen a lot of unions actually in the last week come out and say, okay, look, whether or not we agree, and I think probably most of them do agree with where the Democrats are at with respect to the, ACA subsidies, they're saying, look, the Republicans aren't caving. We need a clean CR, and then you can continue negotiating this. What do you make of the shutdown, and what is it going to take to open the government back up?
Well, first of all, I really do think it is important that we walk through this because I hear a lot of people say all the time that the air traffic controllers are going to solve this for us. That's completely unfair. Okay, when fundamentally the idea that we can force workers to come to work without getting a paycheck is outrageous, and this has been through our courts. This has been codified by our courts. There is not a private business out there that could operate that way. And they can force them to do that because they hold a lot over their heads, dismantling their union, getting rid of their union, sending people to jail. There's been a ton of threats on these workers. And so we need to rally around them. And there's been this false narrative that there is a choice of either continuing the shutdown or fighting for health care, when the reality is, they're both the same. And this idea of a clean CR, it's the dirtiest CR I've ever seen. It is only good until November 21st. The House took that vote and then left town, have not done their jobs for the last 6 weeks. But I do think it's really, really important. Let's just focus in on the workers here. Okay. So the millions of workers who are out of work, not getting a paycheck at all, and then several 100,000 of them who are forced to come to work for free. How many of us could get by on missing a paycheck and a half, coming up on another paycheck? This is unsustainable. The system will break. So we have to understand this. And the idea that the Republicans would make this possible with that cruelty, because this is a continuation of the dismantling of the government. This is a continuation of what the Trump administration has been doing since January. Let's be clear. And it is a continuation of what they tried to do in 2019 to break government, to privatize these provisions and send more to the private sector. So that's what's at play here. But the workers are put in the middle of this. And if you are a worker in a workplace where you want to change the conditions, you have the ability to get together with your coworkers, organize, take a strike vote, determine that you're going to take this on. You have decided now to go on strike, but you are in control of your own destiny at that point. These air traffic controllers are not. They have been threatened, like you said. They have continued to come to work under this incredible stress. And a lot of people want them to solve the problems for us. And they're waiting for them to break because they think that that's going to be the leverage to get this done. We cannot do this to other workers, okay? We are feeding right into the divide tactic of the union busters. And so I do not blame those federal workers whatsoever at all by saying, pass the CR, let us get back to work, let us get our paycheck, because they can't live. And if we spend even one moment entertaining, blaming them or being upset at them, because I have had members of Congress who, by the way, can miss a paycheck or two because they have millions in the bank. Okay. I have had some of them say to me, well, they're doing that against their own self-interest. The administration is just going to keep coming for them. What are you talking about? You must not understand what's happening to workers all across this country. And that starts to describe why we have a problem in our politics. because
Right.
people are not attuned to the people on the front lines. Marjorie Taylor Greene, maybe with a lot of racism, she, at least from what I can tell, kind of comes from the working class, and she has identified, no, this is a problem. We have to deal with these healthcare subsidies. And she's actually said the Republicans have screwed up healthcare. But, she is also attuned to having to struggle in life, having to struggle for that paycheck, having to struggle to make her way. And so we've got to get our arms around the people who understand all of this and build power with all of us who know how all of this works. And also, an additional demand that we have to have here, I think, is that if members of Congress don't do their job and do not fund the government, first of all and foremost, we should never have a system where the federal workers are paying for that. What did they do? They're just faithful servants going to work, trying to keep all of our communities safe. But the members of Congress who fail to do their job, they should lose their job and they should never be able to run for office again. That's what we need to start thinking about in terms of, turning the tables here and making sure that the people who are in these decision-making positions are held to account with what they're doing. But the rest of us, frankly, should be out on strike right now. We should be stopping this. We shouldn't be waiting for someone else to do this for us. We're clearly not there yet. I think that what's going to happen is that we will see the government likely open back up again. But let's be clear, the issue is right now. The issue, the subsidies are having an effect on the ACA premiums that are announced. A lot of people are going to say, I can't pay 60% of my income for healthcare and choose not to opt into those healthcare plans, which is going to have a cascading effect that is going to put the already ridiculous healthcare system that we have in this country, a for-profit system, on a complete death spiral.
That was, what you said about, well, really, we should all just kind of be out on strike and to protest this. And I think that, I think that's where so many people are, but also recognizing what you said, that we're not there. Like, we don't have kind of the capacity to do that. We don't, we're not strong enough yet to do that. And so we need to build more worker power. And that's where I want to end the interview on, the labor movement somehow lost union density every year under the Biden administration. The Trump administration is very obviously much less favorable terrain, with my union, AFGE, in particular under attack. And so what does the labor movement need to be doing during this Trump administration to stop the bleeding and even potentially to start growing, to start building power? Like, what are the tangible steps that we can be taking as rank and file members of our unions, as leaders in our unions, or as people not yet in unions, to start building that power so that we can get to a point where, like some of the unions in like Italy or France can just say, we're done working right now because we have a disagreement with the government. How do we get from here to there, basically?
Yeah. So in fairness, I would say that the policies of the Biden administration, the people who really understood worker power and understood the sort of upside down economy that we have right now, Julie Su, for example, she really understood it, as opposed to people who came before her, and Jennifer Abruzzo at the NLRB. I mean, and frankly, Biden himself. But this is because labor has grown so scarce. So few people actually have experience with collective bargaining. They don't understand it. It took a lot to get people in the administration to actually understand that. We started clicking towards the end of the Biden administration, and President Biden himself is a labor guy and made his cabinet go through the paces of having to assess how this is going to affect labor. Now, a lot of them didn't really understand that, and it took some time for that to actually be integrated into some of the muscle memory there. We had a lot more to do, but I don't think that we had enough time to really feel the effects of what Biden was trying to turn there. So in fairness, I just want to say that. But the Trump administration is an outright assault. If you think about Ronald Reagan firing 13,000 air traffic controllers in 1981, and what kind of signal that sent to corporate America, and what kind of life we lived for the next 40 years as union density was on the decline, Trump canceled the contracts for 1 million federal workers, is
Yep.
firing probationaries, doesn't slow down for the law, doesn't slow down for anything, is constantly pitting us against our neighbors, is outright disappearing people from the streets, is calling on corporations to fire people for speaking out on their private social media pages. This is an outright assault right now, and so we have to really understand that and organize even more urgently. Delta Airlines flight attendants are organizing right now. The campaign is going better than it ever has. Are we going to be able to get to a filing? The government has to be open for us to file for that. And then we have to actually have a board that's willing to schedule an election. But building that worker power is so important. And our union is investing a lot in organizing, because even just organizing has an impact at the table at United Airlines, at American Airlines, at Alaska Airlines. Because they know that Delta is going to have to match as long as workers are organizing there, because they're trying to stave off the union. So they know that at least Delta is going to match those rates to try to make it look like, oh, you don't need a union, while they continue to save on the backs of workers on things like sick leave and time off and your ability to get help if you get injured on the job, all of those things, and due process if anything happens. I mean, Delta flight attendants were fired for making comments after Charlie Kirk's murder. And these are comments. These were not items that were unprotected speech. Okay. So no due process, just out the door. So we're going to have to organize like that. And we know at Delta, we're going to have to build a union strong enough to withstand, hey, maybe we no longer have the ability to get government certification. But if you express enough worker power, you can actually win. So being devoted to that organizing is important. But the other thing that I would just say is that there has to be an organization that is focused wholly on organizing. I mean, I got to give a shout out to EWOC right now for doing the work that unions are not investing in, or, if we're just being real, there's a lot of pressure within those unions to spend the money on the workers who are currently there. And that's appropriate. But if you don't have that muscle memory of, oh yeah, it's the organizing that builds power, and if we don't organize, we're going to continue to go backwards, then that's what tends to happen. People tend to shrink in, and we continue to shrink, and instead of expressing our power and spreading the word about what we can do with worker power, that gets back into a 30% density across the country.
Sara Nelson, International President of the Association of Flight Attendants, AFA-CWA. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jacob. Take care, and solidarity forever.
Solidarity forever. Really enjoyed that conversation. Lots of good stuff there. And EWOC we've been able to talk to EWOC a few times on the program, and they've been doing a lot of really good stuff. And I'm excited to see them continue to succeed. And I am consistently shocked at how prevalent an impulse it is among some union members. Not even saying it's necessarily the majority, but I have been surprised at how loud the minority of union members that feel the way that she was talking about, like that my dues money should be used to service me rather than to organize more workers. And it really goes into that kind of service mindset rather than an organizing mindset. Our caller earlier from Elizabethtown, Kentucky was talking about how lots of people view the union like an ATM machine. They want to put their dues in and then they want to get services out, rather than seeing it as an organization that they are a part of and that they are responsible for being able to build into an organization that has power. And so I'm always shocked at when I see people saying, "Oh, my union shouldn't be investing in new organizing; they should be investing in servicing me somehow." And organizing more workers, especially in your industry, is servicing you because you are raising the floor, right? If you have these non-union outfits that are able to undercut you, then it is, just as a matter of fact, going to make it more difficult for your business to be profitable, right? If there's two businesses, one doing the exact same thing for half the price, let's say, and then another doing the doing a product or a service for like the whole price and paying their workers well, most consumers are going to go to the cheaper option. So you got to go and organize both businesses. That way, the non-union business doesn't undercut you. That is servicing you, if you want to think about it that way. Really, you should be thinking about it in the way that is true, which is that it's building worker power, which is good for you as an individual. Rob Kelly, appreciate the $20 super chat. I respect Nelson, but she's wrong on MTG. Green inherited her father's $40 million construction business. She has no idea what it is to struggle financially. That may be true. I'm not super familiar with Marjorie Taylor Greene. I did think that she was some sort of business owner, but I'm not totally sure. Somebody else said that that maybe she's listening to her children or something who are having a little bit harder of a time than she was, but appreciate the super chat and the correction. Benjo says, yeah, it was wild to see MTG having some based points recently. Yeah, she's been doing that, unfortunately, a couple of times here. But yeah. So we'll see. We'll continue to follow it. If you've got any thoughts about our interview with Sara Nelson or anything else, you can call in 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. Let's talk about Chattanooga's, the workers at Volkswagen in Chattanooga deciding to authorize a strike. A supermajority of Volkswagen workers in Chattanooga vote to authorize strike for job security and a fair contract, says the UAW. So this is from their press release. Volkswagen workers in Chattanooga have voted to authorize a strike against the German automaker after a year of contract negotiations have failed to produce a contract offer. It is a historic first as the first strike authorization vote at a non-Big Three automaker in the modern era. The move comes after months of unfair labor practices committed by the company, including bad faith negotiations, unlawful intimidation, and the unilateral cutting of jobs at Volkswagen's only U.S. assembly plant. Volkswagen made $20.6 billion in profits in 2024 and generates a full 20% of its profits in North America. The company can afford to provide a union contract that honors the hardworking auto workers of Chattanooga. Volkswagen's most recent proposal does not include the job security language needed to protect workers from plant closures, outsourcing, or the sale of the Chattanooga facility. These protections cost the company nothing but mean everything to workers and their families. A strike authorization gives the elected UAW bargaining committee the authority to call a strike if need be. No strike date has been set, and the UAW bargaining committee has continued to request further negotiations with Volkswagen management, who have refused to meet. Volkswagen worker Mitchell Harris says, I don't want to strike, but if it comes to, I will, because I feel that all my brothers and sisters of UAW Local 42 deserve respect, to provide a better life for their families, and have job security for us and generations to come. Taylor Fugate, another Volkswagen worker, said, I'm voting yes to get Volkswagen to come back to the table. The majority of the people I know don't want Volkswagen's quote-unquote final offer. They want to keep negotiating, and we are willing to do what it takes to make that happen. We need affordable health care and a strong job security statement that leaves no gray area. We also deserve equal standards. Southern auto workers shouldn't be treated differently. James Robinson said, I'm voting yes because this is the time to show Volkswagen we are serious about receiving industry standard treatment. Job security is essential. They could pay us $100 an hour, but it means nothing if they close the plant 2 weeks into the agreement. I'm hoping this process shows the company we are serious about getting a fair contract. We will show them their offer wasn't enough and show them we are willing to stand up to get what we deserve. And there are some people that retort to this that, oh, Volkswagen is a great job. Volkswagen is a great job, and so these people need to, shut the hell up and take what they are being given, and that the offer is good, and they should just accept it. Well, we talked, the UAW did a survey of their members about the conditions, about the way that their job has impacted them. And it is not really congruent with Volkswagen being such a great job. So they did a comprehensive survey of nearly 1,800 of Volkswagen Chattanooga workers back in between January and March of 2025. So this is like relatively recent data. The healthcare coverage provided by Volkswagen places workers in a vulnerable and precarious position. Nearly 3 out of 4 Volkswagen Chattanooga workers reported either being forced to choose between paying for medical care and other essential expenditures like rent and food, or having borrowed money or declared bankruptcy to cover medical expenses. The rate rises to 4 out of every 5 parents and caregivers with children on a Volkswagen health insurance plan. In addition to completing the survey, hundreds of Volkswagen workers shared personal stories about being forced to skip necessary medical care and the extreme financial strain they've experienced due to Volkswagen's lower standards. The key findings: 67% reported being forced to choose between paying for medical care and other basic necessities such as rent, utilities, and food. 58% admitted to borrowing money via credit cards, loans, 401k withdrawals, or from family and friends, or filing for bankruptcy due to medical expenses. 57% currently have outstanding medical debt, including accounts and collections and wage garnishments. 18% of survey respondents rely on publicly funded TennCare, Tennessee's Medicaid program, to ensure their children, allowing Volkswagen to shift their responsibility to employees onto Tennessee taxpayers. 29% have faced financial hardship, specifically due to medical bills from a workplace injury. 20% have been forced to take on a second job simply to pay for their medical bills. That is crazy. 1 in 5 Volkswagen workers in Chattanooga have a second job. That's nuts. That's crazy. And so, is it actually that great of a job? Seems like maybe not. Seems like they should make it better. The Chattanooga Times Free Press reported on the strike authorization vote. The union held the strike authorization vote over a 24-hour period at the Embassy Suites on Lifestyle Way in Chattanooga. So they quote a little bit from the news release. They, let's see. Is there anything else in here? Sorry about that. If you're interested in following this, the Chattanooga Times Free Press really does a pretty good job, I think, of pretty consistently following the story, and having good long articles with lots of good context and stuff. They do talk about some workers who want to vote on it, but who want to vote on Volkswagen's deal. They think it's good enough, but it's like, that's it's obviously not the majority, right? I assume a majority of people are authorizing a strike. So, so we'll see what happens. We will see. We'll keep following the story. Obviously, if you're listening to us right now in Chattanooga and you work at the Volkswagen plant, would love to hear from you. 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. You can leave a voicemail at that number anytime, and we might respond to it on the next program. You can also leave a written comment at tvlr.fm/contact. We've got a caller from a 317 area code. 317 area code. Let's go ahead and bring them on the line. 317 area code. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Heartland Teamster again. Can y'all hear me?
Heartland Teamster, I can hear you. What's on your mind?
Well, lately I've been really concerned about this Fifth District, Fifth Circuit Court decision about the NLRA, about the NLRB, and I think the concerning thing to me is, obviously, it's very concerning to think about the NLRA sort of just being blinked out of existence.
Right.
But what's more concerning to me is that the NLRA and the NLRB will continue to be around just for the boss more
Yes.
than for the worker. And, our rights will be hamstrung and the bosses will be left in place. And I think this sort of goes with a theme that labor has been experiencing for some time now, where we're just playing defense. We're just trying to hold on to what we have left, and what we are is we're being slow boiled. We're the frog in the pot being slow boiled, and the changes are little by little. Our rights, they just get chipped away to where it's not acute. We're not noticing it. And then, suddenly we've been cooked. And I think this sort of speaks to what y'all were talking about earlier with this business unionism, this service model where you're not interested in, you're interested in what your union can do for you and not, the broader labor movement. The Teamsters just organized a warehouse Kroger distribution, I believe it is. It's called Zenith, and me and some of my brothers, we were reading their contract, and it's better than the UPS contract. And as a UPS package car driver, I am excited to hear this, because for so long we've heard, you guys have the best wages in the industry. You guys are, you should deal with these bad conditions because you're so well compensated, and your job is such a good job that you need to put up with, the slow grind on your body. You need to put up with supervisor harassment. We hear this from our own union, not just management. We hear this out of the mouth of our own union. And it scares me that unions are just playing defense, and and all of these forces around us are being sort of slow boiled, right? They're slow boiling us, and we're just sitting back playing defense, pretending like it's still the heyday, right? And that we're still powerful, even though the foundation of what we have is being whittled away. And I guess the last thing that I'll leave you with is, Jane McAlevey was talking about, some of this when it was still on the horizon. And she said that union leadership needs to wake up, right? And Sara Nelson, to her credit, is one of those union leaders, but she's far and away in the minority. And Jane McAlevey said we need to take some bold action. We may even need to go on illegal strikes. Those are her words, not mine. She said that union leadership, it needs to be bold and it needs to be ready to take those actions. Ron Carey won our over 70 irregular package handling article through an illegal strike, and he paid the price for it out of his own pocket. Juxtapose that to our current leadership, Sean O'Brien, who is being used as a prop by one of the most anti-labor administrations of my lifetime. So that's what I got to say.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, it's almost difficult to know what to say specifically about the Sean O'Brien stuff. It's like I'm so flummoxed by so much of what he does. And it's so important for unions to go on the offensive and to start trying to build worker power, but it's such a difficult thing to do, especially as we are being attacked, as so many of the forces in the society are trying to destroy unions as an institution, at all. I understand why so many leaders are so hesitant to take a more offensive posture. But I think, I think that you have to, because if you don't, then we're going to lose. I don't think that we can actually defend by defending forever. I don't think that we can do that. And we haven't been able to do, we haven't been able to do that for the last 40 years, right? For the last 40 years, we have been trying to defend by defending, and we have lost ground basically every year. And even though, and we were talking to Sara Nelson about the loss of union density under Biden, and how the Biden administration really did just narrowly, as it relates to workers and unions, basically almost as much as they could have, and unions were just not able to pick up the ball and take advantage of. It's hard to, I didn't say that to blame Biden on the falling union density, or to blame the falling density on Biden, but it's just to say, we had 4 years of as the American landscape goes, relatively favorable terrain, and we were not able to take advantage of it. We were still playing defense, and I don't know what to do to change it. I don't know if you have any thoughts. But, I think he's gone. Appreciate the call, man. If anybody else wants to get where he was, 844-899-TVLR.
Oh, hey, sorry.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I muted while you were talking. I didn't want to interrupt you. I don't really have a great answer other than to tell people we are in a fight or die moment. I sort of think about the UAW, not under Sean Fain, but just sort of immediately preceding him, where they went on strike because they knew, hey, we may not be in a strong position, but this is a moment. This is an existential moment, and right. I think this is an existential moment for us and for the entire country. But I think we have to. Sean O'Brien is in an election right now, and it's sort of in a place where we are not sure what that challenge is going to look like, how powerful that challenge is going to be, or and I think it's sort of yet to be proven that Brother Hooker is going to be something different, from Sean O'Brien. But the point of me saying that is that Sean O'Brien is going to be touring the country asking you for your vote, right? And every Teamster brother and sister, what we need to do in our union is we need to put it to him. We need to say, why are you meeting with these anti-labor ghouls, right? Why haven't you played hardball with UPS, right? Why did we sell out the part-timers during that last contract campaign? Because one of the things that happened, you talk about raising the floor, we sold out the part-timers, and then we saw huge feeder layoffs, and those feeder drivers went back into the building, and their pay rate got dropped down to the prevailing rate, which was that part-time wage that they voted for, right? So you can raise the ceiling all day, right? If you don't raise the floor, you're not doing anything. That's what labor is all about. We used to say overtime was scabbing the unemployed. We used to say things like that. We need to get back to that. We need to get back to that fight. And as Sean O'Brien is touring this country asking you for your vote, you need to say, after everything you've done, why should I vote for you? And you know what? Don't tell me. Go out and show me, because we're still in a battle with UPS right now.
Right.
That's what I can say from a Teamsters perspective, and I encourage every union member, hold your leadership accountable. Run for office. Run for office. It's hard. You may be retaliated against. Retaliation is a huge problem in the Teamsters. But we need to fight. It's
really
it's
quickly,
fight or die. And sometimes that's against our own union.
Yeah, really quickly, Heartland Teamster, you mentioned that, Sean O'Brien is going to be touring the country and speaking to people, asking for people's votes. One of the places that he's going to be at asking for people's votes, although the TDU is for some reason kind of trying to act like Sean O'Brien's speech at the TDU is not going to be a campaign speech, it seems. I don't know why they would say that. It seems like that's obviously why he would be there. But, and they're not allowing Richard Hooker to speak in a similarly prime time speaking slot at the TDU convention. And now, you can go on their Facebook page, Teamsters for a Democratic Union, and look at it, and they've got a letter explaining why they're not doing that. And there's some of it that I'm like, okay, well, I understand. I don't where the TDU is coming from. Like they say that Richard Hooker is, I don't think he's a member of the TDU. I don't even know if he has been a member of the TDU. But they said that he just requested a speaking slot like last week or something, and they're like, the program is set. Our speakers are already confirmed. Our convention is days away. Registration is closed. Like, there's no way that this just came to your attention and that now you want to speak. And so, like we can't allow it. And so, or we can't do it. Like there's not room. And so like, I understand that, I think, and maybe I'm being too charitable, but like they go on and they talk about how, they say something about making a campaign speech on the floor, like we don't want to let you make a campaign speech on the floor or something like that. And it's just like, well, that's what Sean O'Brien's going to be doing. I mean, if that's, I don't know. What do you make of that? What do you make of the TDU not letting Richard Hooker speak at the convention?
Well, the TDU is such a disappointment. I was a 5-year TDU member, and I'm not anymore. And a lot of that had to do with our past, with this last UPS contract campaign, and sort of them talking a big game, and then when they get calls from the Marble Palace, they pull back those real that real tough opposition. I think TDU, I think it's about dollars and cents. I think their adjacency to power gets them grant money, and it legitimizes them and allows them to get more membership dues. And I think it's really shameful what the TDU has been doing, and not necessarily when it comes to letting Richard Hooker speak, but I think the fact that they are, they've banned a number of members, a number of people who are not part of the TDU but wanted to come to the TDU convention, and they've banned members of the TDU who are dissenting voices. I don't know if you saw Sean O'Brien got confronted by a Teamster member at the 2024 labor notes, I believe it was. And that's one of the reasons that they cite, that they don't want that dissent. And I think dissent is important in a democratic institution. I mean, isn't that Teamsters for a Democratic Union? Isn't dissent a part of democracy? So I think TDU should honestly be ashamed. I think that they have the chance to get right on this, but they need to do it now. The daylight is quickly fading for them to be able to get on the right side of history when it comes to pushing for democracy in our union, because I think they've sort of, they're on the path to selling out and to becoming just, another member of the nonprofit industrial complex, not a workers organization. So I mean, that's my plea to the TDU is look inward at what you did during the contract campaign and what you're doing right now with Sean O'Brien, and search your soul and really say, like, are we for the workers? Are we really for democracy in the union, or are we for grant money? Are we for more dues money? So that's my like earnest plea towards the TDU. And those are kind of my thoughts on it.
Heartland Teamster, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. 844-899-TVLR is the phone number if you want to get where he was or leave us a voicemail. We're going to go ahead and wrap up, I think. So appreciate everybody tuning in. We are going to, I think, have we got anybody lined up for the program next week? I think we've got some good folks lined up sometime in the next couple of weeks, but I don't know who we've got next weekend. Let's see if I have. No, I don't have anybody yet confirmed. I'm trying to get somebody from the BCTGM to come on the program. The BCTGM, the Bakery, Confectionery, Tobacco, and Grain Millers Union. They represent some tobacco workers, obviously, and they represent the workers who make the Zins. And apparently they've been able to get 100% density in a plant of like 1,200 people in Kentucky making Zins. So it's super cool. I wanted to talk to them about that. And I can't find, if anybody knows contact information for the BCTGM local where the workers make Zins in Kentucky, get them in touch with me. I tried to look for them, and I can't find an email. I sent an email to the International, and I haven't heard back. I sent a letter to the local union. I found because you can find the address like in their LMs and stuff. So I found the letter, or I found the address of the union. I sent them a letter. I was like, hey, do you want me to go on a radio show? Haven't heard back yet. So if you know anybody, let me know. We do have another caller. This caller from a 256 area code. Let's go ahead and bring them on the air. 256 area code. What is your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, Jake, this is Joe from Decatur.
Joe from Decatur. It's good to hear from you. You went to a city council meeting the other day, right?
I did. I went to a special called city council meeting concerning the Rock the South concert that they're promoting in Decatur. And I'm going to make it really quick, Jake. I only went for one reason, and that was to put a plug in for AFA-CWA to maybe handle those chores at setting up the stage at the show.
Mm-hmm.
I did get a chance to speak. It's just me and one other guy that wanted to make any public comment, and I prefaced my comments that I was not an AFA-CWA member nor an officer, so don't hold nothing against me that I say. But I did approach them and told them that I would encourage them to use AFA-CWA to do that stage. I can't say that I got received very well. They did point to some spokesman for the Peachtree Entertainment who heads up this thing, and I told the guy I wanted to talk to him afterwards, and I did have a short conversation with him. But long story short, I encouraged them to use their influence to get AFA-CWA in there, and talked after the meeting with a few city council members and the incoming mayor, and they pretty much poo-pooed me off and just said, "Hey, that ain't up to us. You got to talk to these Peachtree people." And Jake, I hope I didn't do no damage, but I got a little testy with a couple of them. They can't convince me that they're going to hand over a $1.2 million check next week to this Peachtree Entertainment.
Yeah, and you don't have any influence? Yeah.
Yeah, and the city council has no influence on that. Now, I did have to apologize to the incoming mayor. I didn't shout at him or cuss him, but I did tell him, don't try to poo-poo me off with that crap, because I know better. You can influence that, you can. But I just wanted to bring you up to speed on that. I hope that somebody will get in contact with this Peachtree Entertainment, and they're based in Nashville, from AFA-CWA and continue the conversation. I did talk to one of their spokespeople, and he did tell me that they had worked with AFA-CWA before. So that's a little bit encouraging.
Yeah.
And then I watched the local news. Channel 1931 was there. This same spokesman for this group, he did mention the amount of jobs this would create. Of course, we all know they're temporary. But he mentioned several hundred jobs, blah. But he did say stage hands in that statement he made. Now, not union stage hands,
right,
but stage hands. So I know it was in the back of his mind, or he would have never even mentioned stage hands. He didn't mention concession people or nothing else.
Right.
So maybe we planted a seed. I don't know.
Well, I'm looking online right now, Joe, and it does look like, so in Illinois, IATSE Locals 85 and 193 have an agreement with Peachtree Entertainment. After this happened just in June of this year, and they were able to secure that agreement after IATSE Locals 85 and 193 raised concerns over labor practices and picketed at some of their events. Picketed and hand-billed at some of their events and stuff over in Illinois. So maybe 900 is going to have to do that to get an agreement with Peachtree Entertainment in Decatur. We'll see, I guess.
Well, the first place to start is just to make that contact with them, and hopefully I didn't waste my time over there. And I wasn't sure if IATSE would even be interested in this, since it ain't a permanent structure right now. I didn't know if they dealt with that kind of stuff. But leave that up to Adam and the business agent from 900, and just see what happens.
Yep. All right, Joe.
Now,
appreciate the call. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Jake. One more little thing. Miss Nelson from the airlines union. I made the comment on Facebook, and I said members need to hear that, but really and truly, workers need to hear that conversation. I did catch the little part about Marjorie Taylor Greene, and yeah, she is a millionaire by inheritance. But you got to know her district over there is most of North Georgia, and I used to live pretty close to there, and outside of the carpet mills and very little industry in that part of the country, and them things are starting to fail too. But she's seeing her constituents. It's not a it's a pretty depressed area up there, and no telling how many of her constituents is on the Affordable Care Act, and no telling how many of them is use SNAP benefits. I do know she kind of flipped around there a little bit, but I think it's just for politics with her constituents. But listen, Jake, I'm gonna let you go, man. Listen to the rest of the show.
All right, appreciate it, Joe. Thanks for the call.
See you, man.
I think that is going to be it for us today, though. If you have, I see somebody in the chat, try getting Gil McGowan from the Alberta Labor Federation on planning a general strike. Is he doing that? Is he planning a general strike in Alberta? That would be wild, and I would like to talk to him about that. Yeah, let us know if you have any recommendations for a guest. You can do that at tvlr.fm/contact at any time, and we will take it all under advisement. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Enjoyed the conversations in the chat. Y'all have a good rest of your week. We'll see you next week. All power to the workers.